Yeah, like the Irgun and many of these other Zionist militias before the formation of Israel that contributed to like horrifying violence during the Nakba that led to the inception of the Israeli state. They were getting weapons from Czechoslovakia by way of the USSR, and so now it is time for us to get to the third installation of the Jabri saga, the finale, if you will, the perversion of Ghislaine Maxwell, the Jeffrey Epstein saga, part 3. Let's take a look.
Does it all look, is my hair good? Do I, it's all good. All right, we're rolling.
The other part is that
It's so vast that, you know, when you go to the sea, the seashore, you only see that little piece of the seashore. You might see some plastic debris on there, but you don't see much past that. And it's very hard to connect to something that you don't feel a part of and something that you can't see. If the destructive activities were happening on land like they are happening on the ocean, I think that there would be a worldwide outcry.
The biggest crime by Jabri is that he will cover these horrific, monstrous criminals, and then he'll also cook up a fat-ass beat in the process. So then you just find yourself bobbing your head along while you're like, damn, Ghislaine Maxwell did a lot of sex crimes, huh? To minors specifically. And it's like, what am I doing right now? Why does this beat go hard? This is up. I need to stop bobbing my dang head. You don't have to cook so hard, Jabri. You let your words do the talking. Okay.
So, I'm a big fan of the show Succession, and while I have yet to create an alt Twitter account where I baby girlify grown men, I did spend roughly $16 on a book of all the scripts from season 1, which I understand is maybe a little insane, but since I'm mentioning it here, it's now a tax write-off. As I skimmed over the first couple pages, I noticed the show's creator, Jesse Armstrong, naming 3 real-life media families who served as inspiration for the fictional Roy family. He mentioned the Murdochs, who control Fox News, Sky News, and the Wall Street Journal, and the Redstones, who own Nickelodeon, CBS, and Paramount. But the most notable person mentioned here to me was Robert Maxwell.
Flamboyant, charming, some say ruthless, Maxwell remains one of Britain's most famous adopted sons.
A British newspaper baron who owned a multitude of publishing companies throughout his lavish, controversial, and mysterious lifetime. Robert also just so happens to be the father of convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. Armstrong even specifically cited Ghislaine's close relationship with her late father as further inspiration behind some of his own characters. For all intents and purposes, the Maxwell family is like something we would see on TV. An intimidating patriarch at the reins of a multi-billion-dollar media conglomerate who forces his corrupt but privileged children to compete for his love and affection. If nothing else, the Maxwell mythos teaches us that fact can sometimes be more tantalizing than fiction. Because when you really take a closer look into what the Maxwells are really known for, not only do you find rampant financial fraud spanning numerous decades, you also get shady ties to international governments, capped off with a mysterious that still has a myriad of unanswered questions attached to it. And that's all in addition to Ghislaine's own history of crimes, earning her a 20-year sentence in federal prison thanks to her notorious relation to one of the biggest known predators of the 21st century.
The judge making note prior to the sentencing that this is not an issue of Ghislaine Maxwell being a proxy for Jeffrey Epstein, she said, but this is someone who was part of a scheme.
I think you can see why I gave Ghislaine her own video now. Join me as we explore the endless mystique and depravity surrounding one of the most infamous names to ever grace headlines.
In his ivory tower, where high-powered executives queue for higher-powered decisions, publisher Robert Maxwell is pleased he's done it his way without a whopping.
Mirror Group Newspapers has just said that significant assets of their pension fund had been lent or transferred to private companies controlled by Robert Maxwell, apparently without due authority.
You've got to assume right from the beginning that you're dealing with people who have got the morals of barnyard roosters.
creating a high-quality at-home dining experience you can't get anywhere else. Choose from as little as 4 to as many as 16 meals delivered right to your door each week, arriving fresh, not frozen, via courier or shipment in compostable, recyclable, or reusable packaging, with expiration dates, chef's heating instructions, and information. But for best results, I'd recommend you heat them in the oven. Speaking from experience here, CookUnity has made meal prep for me a lot easier. Tonight I had this grilled marinated flank steak by Chef Chris Rattel, straight from Austin, Texas. I also got to try their amazing kale pesto rigatoni and their cheese enchiladas, both of which I would highly recommend. So don't wait, go to cookunity.com/Jaubrey50 right now, or click the link in the description and use my code Jaubrey50 to get 50% off on your first order of CookUnity meals to try out for yourself.
But fuck
They're consistently great quality. Ghislaine Noel Marion Maxwell was born to Robert.
I work here, don't eat here. They donated to LAPD, please. I work there. Please don't eat here. Oh my God, last time I found an AirPod in the food. The kitchen manager tries to give out raw chicken. Please, I work here. Oh my God. Your $6 a month subscription or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime allow me to maintain my editorial independence. That's right. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you. You can also gift... Oh my, I can't even finish it. You can also give subscriptions to others as well. Kubaka, thank you for the 5 gifted. Let's continue.
Involved in a violent car accident near Oxford that left him in a coma for the remaining 7 years of his life. An event so devastating, the Maxwells' lives were suddenly and completely upended. As Elizabeth later wrote in her memoir, the consequences of such a tragedy were incalculable for us all. Describing the ways in which every family member coped with the event, Elizabeth admitted here to neglecting their youngest daughter Ghislaine during some of the most formative years of her life, recalling that, quote, Ghislaine, who should have been the center of our love and attention, was hardly given a glance and became anorexic as a toddler. One day, age 3, she planted herself in front of me and said simply, "Mummy, I exist." From that day, we all made a great effort with her, fussing over her so much she became spoiled. The only one of my children I can truly say that about. Yet, it's true that all the Maxwell children were well acquainted with the finer things in life. They grew up in the mammoth Headington Hill Hall, a secluded Italiente mansion straight out of Saltburn, which I checked, and it's only about an hour-and-a-half drive from the real Saltburn house, a fun fact for any Barry heads out there. Built all the way back in 1824, the 51-room palace first belonged to the Morell family for over 100 years, before being snatched up by media tycoon Robert Maxwell in 1959, who restored the property.
Mummy pilled. Mummy! Mother! Mother!
From its dilapidated state to a thing of beauty. In addition to replacing its original Victorian-era stained glass window with a depiction of himself as Samson from the Bible, Tatler magazine also wrote that Robert eventually planted guards along the property's main entrance, peppered the fence with barbed wire, and installed security cameras to nearby trees, which earned it the new unofficial name Purgatory Press, a play on his publishing company Pergamon Press.
What, as you think back, was the happiest time you've ever had so far in that house?
My children and my family being together. Every Christmas so far we have managed to be together. And seeing them happy and busy.
Historian Ben McIntyre described the Maxwell's children's upbringing as a mixture of cruelty and luxury, which isn't speculation if you read anything from Ghislaine's siblings. Her brother Ian stated physical abuse was a regular disciplinary tool used against both the boys and the girls. It goes without saying that Robert...
He only does this when he responds in kind. Hey, chatter, you keep sending this link of Bad Empanada demanding the address of a content creator. Are you out of your mind? I mean, serious question. He only does this when he has to respond in kind, completely justified. Are you out of your mind, dude? Do you need to be beaten with a belt, Ghislaine Maxwell style? Is that what's going on? Shut the up. Like, what use is there for me to react to Bad Empanada demanding the address of another content creator, no matter how indecent or awful or evil they might be? What use? What use? Can you only when there's like some kind of drama taking place? Is that what it is? God damn. Thank you, State of Qatar, for the 10 gifted subs. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by the State of Qatar.
Robert's affection was hard to come by, with his strict expectations even extending to the dinner table, where he would berate his children.
Beitar's that old? Yes, Beitar is one of the OG Zionist groups. Beitar was founded by Jabotinsky, which is a man who was even more racist and reactionary than even Theodore Herzl was.
Verbally to the point of tears if they failed to engage properly with the topic of conversation he proposed. He was incredibly controlling in nearly every aspect of their lives, being extremely strict of the boys Ghislaine was allowed to date, for instance, as he reportedly had his own plans for his youngest daughter to one day marry JFK Jr. He considered Ghislaine his favorite child and made no secret of it, going so far as to name his super yacht the Lady Ghislaine. More on that little 180-foot monstrosity in a bit, but first, I want to take a moment here to explore Robert's own personal history.
We lived in one room with 7 children, hungry most of the time, did not have any clothes to wear in winter.
It's true that Robert Maxwell was a fixture in British society, but it wasn't always that way. Born in poverty to Jewish parents in 1923, Robert, or at that time Jan Ludwig Hawk, grew up in a 2-room wooden shack before being forced to flee his home country of Czechoslovakia as a teenager during Nazi occupation in 1939. He changed his name a total of 4 times, in part to hide his Jewish ancestry, before finally deciding on Robert Maxwell, joining the Allied forces and participating in the Battle of Normandy, even being awarded a military cross in 1945. Though it wasn't until after the war that he learned his parents, grandfather, and 4 siblings had all lost their lives in the Holocaust while he was away fighting. A traumatic revelation that would haunt him for the rest of his life, making an effort later on to rebuild the family he had lost to the Nazis, even setting out to have the exact same number of kids as his parents, 9. Teaching himself how to speak with a proper English accent through Churchill speeches, Maxwell's wartime resilience had successfully gained him the trust of his British superiors. And after being tasked with gathering intel on a suspected communist uprising in Paris, 1944, Maxwell was then reportedly relocated to Berlin and assigned to carry out espionage work for the British intelligence agency MI6 after the war, as written in John Preston's book, Fall. As a 24-year-old intelligence asset stationed in Berlin, Maxwell, I guess, got bored. He met a guy over there who ran a German publishing company. This guy was sitting on a huge cache of scientific journals that had yet to be published in the West. The problem was this guy was a German national, and at the time, German nationals were prohibited from making large overseas shipments for reasons that, well, I don't think I need to state. Maxwell then took it upon himself to secure the distribution rights and translate those journals to English before selling them to the West for a handsome profit, in an operation reportedly, allegedly, maybe, facilitated and bankrolled by British intelligence. The only time, as one former MI6 member told Preston, that the agency had ever bought a business for anyone. This placed Maxwell at the helm of a budding publishing company he named Pergamon Press, and went on to live a nice, honest life as an upstanding citizen giving back to the community.
Nope. Psych!
What I would say if I were lying. Robert Maxwell was pretty much the exact opposite of that. He was a pretty bad guy. He's a bad guy, okay? Something also that I thought was interesting is that Pergamon Press apparently once had a dude named Brian Cox working for it, which is weird because that's the actor who plays Logan Roy on Succession. No relation, obviously, but just thought it was funny. There aren't many people who get to say they're a billionaire, media magnate, con man, and international spy all at once, but Robert Maxwell sure did. Maxwell's alleged history of criminal behavior spans all the way back to at least 1955. When it came out, he had been stripping assets from his main company and selling them to make up for all the loans he had taken out, according to Preston. A fun little illegal strategy he would employ at different moments throughout the rest of his life, in fact. But being reported to the Insolvency Service wasn't about to get in the way of Maxwell's zeal for power. Running for prime minister in 1959, Maxwell was sure to prominently place his military rank of captain next to his name on the ballot, which is a little vain if you ask me. It didn't work, he lost the election, but this also wouldn't be the last time he would run for office, because shortly after Ghislaine's birth, and while the Maxwells were still dealing with the constant stress of their loved one being in a coma, Robert decided it was a great time to join Parliament. I can personally think of no easier way to immediately put your already anguished family under even more stress than pushing yourself further into the formidable world of politics. But he did, being elected Labour MP of Buckingham in 1964. The day before that election, Maxwell was also arrested for shaving while driving, which it doesn't sound that insane until you realize he was going at 90 miles per hour. Not something you want to do with a razor blade pressed to your face, honestly. Luckily, the mogul learned his lesson, though, being slammed with a hefty fine of 25 pounds. Great. Maxwell may have come from nothing, but he certainly wasn't representative of the average working-class Englishman by the time he served in Parliament, becoming known as the man who gets things done, if by getting things done you mean introducing powdered milk to the cafeteria in the House of Commons. By the end of his second term, Maxwell had encountered some new problems over at Pergamon, being dumped from the board of his own company when he was exposed for, once again, artificially inflating his profits. But make no mistake, Maxwell was just as shrewd as he was corrupt. The man who ousted him from the company, Saul Steinberg, failed to realize that Maxwell still controlled an American subsidiary of Pergamon, giving him a ton of leverage he then used to bleed the parent company dry, forcing Steinberg to retreat in shame, according to Preston. Back in the captain's chair, Maxwell spent the following years of his life expanding his business ventures far and beyond what anyone could have imagined. During the 80s, he owned an Oxford football club and acquired a slew of companies including Nimbus Records, Macmillan Publishers, half of the British MTV. I mean, this dude was all over. One of his most lucrative companies, though, besides Pergamon, became a Mirror Group newspapers, which included the Daily Mirror, the second most popular magazine in the country behind The Sun, owned by Australian media tycoon Rupert Murdoch. Murdoch had already stiffed Maxwell out of at least 3 major business deals at this point, all of which Maxwell took extremely personal. His son even told Preston that at one time, it was as if the only 2 people in the world breathing the same air were my father and Rupert Murdoch. It was also during this time that Maxwell began to finally embrace his Jewish roots he had long tried to downplay, though it is said he had previously been involved with some secret dealings during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, in which it's alleged he used his connections behind the Iron Curtain to persuade and facilitate his home country of Czechoslovakia to arm Israel with strategic air defenses that helped.
Before Israel, this is like this is circa Israel. This predates Israel. He was gun running when it was illegal to give any weapons to the Zionist brigades at all. So that's, I mean, he's using imprecise language, partially because I assume Jaubrey, especially a year ago, maybe, I don't know, probably was like, I mean, this is not something that many people even understand or know about, but yeah, that's what he was doing. There was a embargo. There was a weapons embargo on Zionist militias in his 20s. He was doing that. Brother, this is after World War II. You know what he was doing during World War II? He was an OSS agent. What are you talking about? He was already, yes, yeah, like the Irgun and many of these other Zionist militias before the formation of Israel that contributed to like horrifying fucking violence during the Nakba that led to the inception of the Israeli state. They were getting weapons from Czechoslovakia by way of the USSR, and it was known. It was speculated that it was Robert Maxwell that was playing his, using his contacts within the USSR, which he continuously used throughout his entire media career later down the line, but used his contacts in the USSR to traffic weapons by way of Czechoslovakia to these Zionist brigades.
Push them to victory, at least according to what sources told journalist Mark Ahrens and former federal prosecutor and author John Loftus in their book The Secret War Against the Jews, How Western Espionage Betrayed the Jewish People. Maxwell didn't officially visit Israel until several decades later, at which point Preston asserts he was so moved he began a business relationship with Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad.
Yeah. Only then. Chatters. Only then. Yeah, definitely not before.
In addition to a hefty $250 million donation he made to the state of Israel, which made him the state's single biggest investor, he also worked out an agreement to, quote, pass on any useful information that came his way to Mossad, as written by Preston and originally alleged by arms dealer and ex-Israeli intelligence agent Ari Ben Menashe, who has not only repeatedly accused Maxwell of being a Mossad agent, but also blamed the billionaire for the imprisonment of Israeli nuclear technician Mordecai Vanunu, who, in September of 1986, threatened to blow the whistle on Israel's highly secretive campaign to obtain a nuclear arsenal. Unfortunately, Vanunu made the mistake of showing proof of these nuclear weapons to Robert Maxwell, hoping the story would be published in the Daily Mirror and blow the lid on the whole operation. Unfortunately, though, that didn't happen.
6 levels below ground, the Israelis had built a plutonium reprocessing plant, a nuclear bomb factory. To this day, Israel still refuses to acknowledge its existence.
As The Independent reported in 2004, Maxwell turned around and sent these photos to the Israeli embassy in London to, quote, supposedly confirm whether or not the story was true. It seems likely that Maxwell had motives other than journalistic integrity in this betrayal of Vanunu. As written by Preston, this resulted in Vanunu being, quote, snatched off a street in Rome by Mossad agents, injected with a paralyzing drug, smuggled on board a ship, and taken back to an Israeli prison, where he spent the next 12 years of his life in solitary confinement, subjected to what Vanunu called cruel and barbaric punishment. So thanks, Robert. Always looking out for the working man, huh? These allegations were brought to the attention of Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist Seymour Hersh, the man who exposed the My Lai massacre in 1970. Went on to publish the Vanunu story in his 1991 book, The Samson Option. While Maxwell and the Mirror sued Hersh for libel, Hersh was eventually issued an apology from the paper and received substantial damages, which effectively ended the suit in 1994, according to the New York Times. The Mirror also did run a story about Vanunu shortly after he was imprisoned, but it was one where they cast complete doubt on his testimony and slandered his character up and down. He couldn't—
That's crazy, man. Oh my God, who would have thought? I mean, certainly today, obviously different time back then, where you have people who are directly working in unison with Mossad at institutions and media companies. Like, certainly today you don't have many outlets that would do propaganda for the state of Israel, right? Like, that ended there. Story ends there. Don't look any further. Like, for example, how many in the top brass of the New York Times, how many people in the top brass of the New York Times have direct affinities to the state of Israel, children that are currently serving in the Israeli occupying force, have directly served in the Israeli occupying force. Obviously, that's not like a reputable institution of journalism such as The Atlantic, for example, could not have a fucking editor-in-chief that was an Israeli concentration camp prison guard, right? Like, you know, that famous journalist that was in the Signal group with Pete Hegseth, the vice president, and numerous other heads of intelligence. That guy, I mean, that would be crazy, right? Yes, for the chatter who said, I'm acoustic. What is he talking about? Is he being sarcastic or sincere? Yes, I'm being sarcastic. I'm saying that there are still many ties to the nation state of Israel amongst reputable institutions, reputable mainstream media publications. Yes. Also, this guy is literally still under house arrest in Israel. Vanunu, Mordechai Vanunu.
Exactly defend himself because, well, he was in jail being tortured by the government. So Maxwell made a lot of enemies during his lifetime, though it was Rupert Murdoch who Maxwell became particularly obsessed with. Ironically, it was Maxwell's incessant urge to compete and exist in the same arena as Murdoch that, as Preston put it, led to his physical and mental disintegration, his downfall, and ultimately his death. In his attempts to earn Murdoch's respect, Maxwell ended up acquiring Macmillan for way more than what the company's own directors thought it was worth, borrowing from over 40 separate banks just so the transaction could be possible. Pulling a bit of an Elon there, I guess you could say. Adding to the long list of financial missteps Maxwell made throughout the course of his career. Before long, his debts had reportedly exceeded $1 billion. The banks he had borrowed from wanted their money back, and as a result, Maxwell began siphoning cash from the pension funds of his Pergamon employees. Some 763 million pounds were reported to be missing from his many companies by 1991. Which included over 400 million pounds that he stole from pensions alone. Maxwell, if you can't tell by now, was kinda in some deep shit.
Robert Maxwell inhabited a realm of lies. Many people knew this, but kept their counsel. Cowardice, or respect for the law of libel, to which Maxwell would resort with apparently infinite funds to silence those who would scrutinize his secret.
In November of that year, just weeks before this revelation became public, Maxwell boarded the Lady Ghislaine for what was supposed to be a few days of rest and recreation on the high seas. Crew members recall his unusually cheerful demeanor, despite being faced with a mountain of legal issues back at home. The banks, the pensioners, and the authorities were all breathing down his neck. His son, Kevin, recalled a tense phone call with his father on the evening of November 4th, in which an argument erupted between the two men over how a meeting with the Bank of England was to be handled the following day. The knives couldn't have been closer to the mogul's throat. By the morning of November 5th, when Kevin attempted to phone his father at 6:00 a.m., there was no answer. Then at 10 a.m., a New York banker asked to be put through to Maxwell's stateroom. Again, no answer. At 11, a vice chairman of Macmillan called. For the third time that morning, there was no answer. At first, the crew assumed he was still asleep, until they realized Maxwell wasn't in his bedroom.
Overly litigious snowflakes everywhere? I mean, what? What? An overly litigious person who goes after critics of Israel? What?
In fact, he hadn't been spotted anywhere all morning.
Who loses lawsuits as well? Specifically, frivolous libel lawsuits, as a matter of fact. And yet doesn't let up and continues using whatever kind of fucking money they have remaining to continue engaging in ridiculous lawsuits. What?
Not in the kitchen or the living area or any of the decks. It was here that the Lady Ghislaine's crew came to the slow and painful realization that Robert Maxwell was no longer on board the ship.
So you support Rupert Murdoch in this analogy? No, I'm in a let them fight camp in this analogy. Okay? And also, I was actually supporting Seymour Hersh in this analogy. Not fucking Rupert Murdoch, dummy. Because Robert Maxwell and the Mirror sued Sy Hersh for his credible reporting on Robert Maxwell's involvement in the subsequent arrest of Mordechai Vanunu for the crime of whistleblowing Israel's nuclear program. Think.
A search party immediately sprung into action, scanning for any possible sign of the 68-year-old billionaire in surrounding waters. Unfortunately, the Lady Ghislaine had already docked at the island of Tenerife, Spain, 2 hours before Maxwell was even reported missing, according to this Guardian article from the day after it happened. It stated that Maxwell's body was soon found floating face-up naked, over 100 miles away from the Lady Ghislaine's scheduled route. When asked how the body could possibly get all the way over there, the island's civil governor answered, "That's a good question." After what I can only imagine was a strenuous experience trying to load Maxwell's corpse onto a Spanish helicopter, 3 pathologists tasked with carrying out an autopsy were all
How are you making this analogy, man? One guy's like a super site comment and the other's a pathetic YouTube person, like orders of magnitude. You know what's really funny about this? Is that I wasn't even fucking talking about Ethan Klein. I was thinking of Alan Dershowitz and many other people that literally spend every waking moment defending the fucking nation state of Israel. But it's hilarious because like Ethan is doing the same shit. So many fucking drama chirpers, whenever I'm talking about like liberal Zionists who defend Israel or whatever, instantly go, wow, I can't believe you're talking about a fucking YouTuber. It's like, no, dumbass. If the shoe fits, why the fuck are you complaining? That's it.
Unable to fully agree on Maxwell's exact cause of death. This 2001 article from The Independent explains that the lack of water found in Maxwell's lungs led one British pathologist to rule out drowning, with a different Israeli doctor concluding the following day that no, actually he did drown and also he suffered a heart attack. The third doctor agreed with the drowning but argued Maxwell did not have a heart attack. So which was it? Well, I'm sorry to say that to this day, nobody knows. What's weird is that Maxwell's body was still soft to the touch by the time his wife got to review it, noting it was weird that rigor mortis hadn't set in. After supposedly floating aimlessly through the ocean for upwards of 12 hours, Mirror reporter John Jackson, who also reviewed the body, remarked that Maxwell looked to be in perfect condition. No discoloration or wrinkles to be seen. Not even his hair dye was running. Preston also mentioned that a test of Maxwell's bone marrow found no trace of diatoms, microscopic algae commonly found in drowning victims in neither his lungs nor the surrounding 3 liters of seawater that Maxwell's body had been found in. So did he die before landing in the water? The official ruling is that he accidentally plunged over the side of his yacht either before or after suffering a heart attack. But that ruling hasn't been enough to convince everyone. Some, like former Mirror editor Roy Greenslade, are of the mind that Maxwell understood how dire and hopeless his situation was, and decided to deliberately end it all before he could face repercussions, while others, specifically those in the Maxwell family, have argued their father would never commit suicide. It just wasn't in his makeup or mentality. Elizabeth rejecting the suicide notion on multiple occasions, telling the Mirror, "I toyed with every possibility, that he had been pushed in by someone planted there. There were so many people who hated him. He had many."
This is such a funny, dude. This is such a funny thing to say. Everybody could have killed him. Okay, you don't understand. Literally everyone could have killed him. He was a real piece of shit. Okay, he was a ginormous piece of shit. He basically had it coming, if you ask me. I mean, I don't even know. I can't even give you a list. It's easier to find a list of who wouldn't have killed him if we were to look at if we were to look at his ops. Yeah, he was like a triple agent and a fraudster. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Threats, many people would be delighted to bump him off. Later doubling down in her memoir, "I said at the time, and will never alter my view, that Bob did not commit suicide." The Mirror's senior photographer Ken Lennox told The Guardian that he used to get up at night and pee over the stern of the ship. Everybody knew this, and he weighed about 22 stone or 300 pounds at this time. The railings were wire, so I think he lost his balance because he was very top heavy. He was Teflon, man. I don't think he committed suicide. But as Preston pointed out, Maxwell's cabin door had been locked from the inside, with the main door leading out to the deck also being locked the night he fell overboard. The key was never recovered, which, if you ask me, points to something more than just an accident.
No, you don't understand. He locked it from the inside and then killed himself. He was sad.
And if you ask Ghislaine Maxwell, her father was murdered. Just like Ghislaine's future boyfriend, there are plenty of conflicting theories when it comes to her father's possible murder. The most prominent one implicating Mossad, who some say opted to assassinate their alleged one-time associate, fearful that his activities on their behalf were about to be exposed, as The Independent put it. Perhaps his swath of financial crimes had finally made him too much of a liability to keep around any longer. In their book, The Assassination of Robert Maxwell, authors Gordon Thomas and Martin Dillon present the theory that Maxwell had asked the state of Israel to cover his debts to the tune of hundreds of millions. Refusing to do so, they worried Maxwell would retaliate by going public about their relationship, and therefore took him out with a nerve agent before he got the chance to talk, at least according to Thomas and Dillon. But if they had in fact murdered Maxwell, this didn't stop them from putting together what was basically a state-sponsored funeral for him in Israel just a few days later, attended by high-ranking members of the Israeli intelligence community.
Real flex, when you go and visit the funeral of the person that you are responsible for the murder of,
as well as both the president and prime minister of Israel, the latter of whom thanked Maxwell for being an enthusiastic friend of Israel, adding that "I knew him, especially in recent times, as someone who took great interest in the Israeli economy, invested money in Israel, and offered to put his wide contacts in the international arena at Israel's service. He is..."
Showed up to the motherfucker's funeral to make sure he was dead. Hello, fellow terrorist supporters. Hope you all enter 41% of trans community. Aww.
Done more for Israel than can today be said. Back at home, Pergamon was going up in flames. Both Ian and Kevin Maxwell were arrested for their alleged involvement in their father's financial schemes, though their acquittal didn't slow the company they inherited from suffering a massive collapse almost immediately after, with Robert's death also forcing his widow into a state of financial ruin. She lost everything she once owned and was supported by her children for the rest of her life. Robert Maxwell's public reputation was forever tarnished. For example, here's what the Mirror looked like in the immediate aftermath of his death versus the headline they ran just a couple weeks later. And in case you were wondering what happened to that infamous yacht, the Lady Ghislaine was eventually passed off to a Saudi Arabian lawyer before finally ending up in the hands of one Anna Murdoch, the former wife of Maxwell's longtime personal rival, Rupert Murdoch. Another weird connection I found pertaining to that yacht is that it was originally constructed for a businessman by the name of Imad Khashoggi, which I heard and thought, that name sounds kind of familiar. A 5-second Google search found that Imad is the nephew of a Saudi Arabian arms dealer you may remember, Adnan Khashoggi, an alleged client of the central character tying this whole enigmatic web together.
Would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Miami Herald journalist Julie K. Brown wrote in her book Perversion of Justice of a time Elizabeth Maxwell made the desperate attempt to contact an unnamed friend of the family shortly after she lost it all. She described him as an American businessman Robert had met during his short stay.
Yes, Adnan Khashoggi is the uncle of Jamal Khashoggi, who was chopped up in the Saudi embassy in Istanbul.
In charge of the New York Daily News. She thanked this white knight for allowing her a place to stay after her husband's death, reflecting on the unfailing generosity he continued to show her in the coming years. Then, on November 24th, 1991, not even a month after Robert's death, the YIVO Institute for Jewish Research put together an event dedicated to the late tycoon's memory. Both Elizabeth and Ghislaine Maxwell sat in attendance that night. Pictured next to them at New York's Plaza Hotel was a man not yet known to the general public. His name was Jeffrey Epstein.
He covered his face with a mask and dark sunglasses, but this is Juan Alessi, who managed...
Were they both intelligence assets as well? Adnan and his son, his cousin, you mean? Yes. There is suspicion that Jamal Khashoggi was an intelligence asset. Yes. I mean, it's still completely insane to fucking assassinate him in the Saudi embassy, but yeah, and then hack him to pieces and then put him in a fucking trash can and try to like melt his body, details of which we only know of because the Turkish government had literally put cameras in virtually every fucking facet of that embassy, which is also crazy. Like, they were surveilling every part of that embassy. It is a
Jeffrey Epstein's Florida mansion for 12 years, and who says that Ghislaine Maxwell was at the center of everything that happened there.
Did Miss Maxwell instruct you to pick up the young girls?
The transphobic piece of shit got clapped.
He had no comment last night, but Alessi had earlier told a Manhattan court that the sprawling home in Palm Beach was run by him, but Maxwell made clear that she was the boss. He testified, "From the day she took over, she mentioned to me that she would be the lady of the house."
In 2002, our old pal Stephen Hoffenberg was still in the middle of serving a jail sentence for his role in the tower's financial Ponzi scheme when he spoke to journalist Vicky Ward on the record. According to him, alleged arms dealer Douglas Leese had introduced Jeffrey Epstein to a whole swath of shady characters, which included the late Robert Maxwell. When pressed on the matter, Epstein downplayed his relationships to Leese and claimed to have never even met Maxwell, though Ward admits she did not pursue the notion that he had. Even though Ghislaine was already a known associate of Epstein at the time she wrote the article. Hoffenberg also told Ward that Epstein was known to run in various intelligence circles, with several anonymous sources agreeing that Epstein was known to be a hyper-fixer, someone who could act as a go-between for international governments and cultures, similar to what Robert Maxwell was always thought to be doing. In fact, Ari Ben Menashe even claims to have been Maxwell's handler when he worked for Mossad, while Israel, on the other hand, denies any and all ties to him. At the end of the
Of course, I mean, never. Never. Just like with Jeffrey Epstein, never. I mean, that would be crazy. Please, that's anti-Semitism.
Today, none of this has been officially confirmed, and the three-letter agencies who may know something have all repeatedly refused to cooperate with journalists, adding another layer of confusion to this already frustrating story. But this hasn't stopped any speculation, as Ward described the most popular theory to be that Maxwell had introduced Epstein to international governments, who then used him as a vehicle to collect intelligence, before he, as Hoffenberg asserts, took it a step further and started recording powerful people committing unspeakable acts. Hoffenberg even told The Sun that Epstein, his former business partner, would brag about this, explaining that, for instance, Prince Andrew had a weakness for the girls and fast life. Epstein provided that fantasy. Andrew would then give intelligence that Epstein would give to Israel. This was happening when I was working with Epstein. They created the plan of installing the honeypot cameras and had taken over the house in Manhattan to blackmail the politicians. He then took over the house in Florida and put in cameras. The cameras were to record rapes. It wasn't just about gathering intelligence, but compromising the politicians. A highly bold assertion that, at this rate, may just remain unconfirmed forever. After her father's death stripped her of the lavish, elite status she had enjoyed her entire life, The Guardian reported that by 1992, Ghislaine was spending less time in Britain in exchange for a new life in America.
Also, remember, Ghislaine is not dead. Jeffrey Epstein is, and so is Jean-Luc Brunel. So one must ask the question, why a pivotal part of this sex trafficking espionage operation is still very much alive? Well, maybe because powerful people recognize that she has the capacity to play ball.
With millionaire Jeffrey Epstein, helping to manage his various properties in Manhattan and Palm Beach before becoming his top recruiter of young girls by at least 1994. For many years, the exact nature of their relationship was pretty unknown, other than Epstein once describing her as his best friend in Vicky Ward's 2003 Vanity Fair article, with Ward adding she seems to organize much of his life. In 2021, an entire cache of new photos came to light, depicting the two as being a lot closer than just best friends. But to get a better understanding of what exactly Ghislaine was doing for her one-time boyfriend, I want to turn back to Virginia Giuffre's memoir, which mentions Ghislaine over 100.
Someone asked if Jeffrey Epstein was gay. There's a likelihood that he was bisexual, or at least like fucked Les Wexner
140 times throughout its nearly 140 pages. It also does contain some pretty graphic descriptions of abuse, so once again, if that's something you find uncomfortable or triggering to listen to, I completely understand. We discussed in part 1 how Ghislaine introduced herself to Virginia at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort before inviting the young girl over to Epstein's Manhattan residence to be abused again and again, sometimes with Ghislaine herself even participating, as a number of other victims have now testified as well. Virginia expanded on the first time she was instructed to massage Epstein while Ghislaine assisted her, writing, "I was prepped by Ghislaine to treat this as a lesson from her and follow her exact lead. If I did good tonight, then maybe I would become Jeffrey's traveling masseuse, seeing the world and getting paid well for it." The two began massaging Epstein together, with both Epstein and Ghislaine making flirtatious comments to the young girl until Epstein finally rolled over on his back and exposed himself. Virginia looked to Ghislaine for guidance, but to her shock, Ghislaine was now standing behind her, bare-breasted. She promptly began undressing Virginia, pausing for a moment so she and Epstein could have a laugh at what they called her little girl panties. Once the abuse was over, the three of them reconvened downstairs, where Ghislaine passed Epstein a black duffel bag containing Virginia's payment for the day, assuring her she had great potential in being a massage therapist. Virginia wrote that her mindset at the time was that in order to succeed, she needed to step up from being a teenager and start thinking like a young woman, telling herself, so what if I had to bargain my body to this rich old geezer? Some girls get themselves through college by becoming a stripper and using their bodies to pay for degrees. Others go down even worse paths. I guess it was just another way to fathom the road I was going down. The effectiveness of the lies I forced myself to believe was working as I continued to tell myself I had to make it any way I could rather than ever letting myself sleep on the streets again. I was trading one shocking lifestyle for another, thinking I was choosing the right one. This echoes a testimony from another victim by the name of Sarah Ransom, who said Ghislaine helped her refine her massage skills to satisfy Jeffrey, explaining that, quote, "If I didn't have sex with Jeffrey, I would be homeless and starving in New York, and my dream of getting a full-time education at one of the top fashion institutes in the world would be diminished," which I need to emphasize again was completely deliberate on the part of Epstein and Ghislaine. They went out of their way to find disenfranchised disenfranchised girls who they could basically force into a world of subjugation. Ghislaine continuing to locate and groom an unspecified number of girls for Epstein throughout the 90s and 2000s, working to normalize the abuse by having sexually charged conversations with the girls or just being a part of the abuse. Virginia once noting how she sure did act like she loved having control over me, telling me what to do throughout the entire Ghislaine's subsequent trial, which we will discuss more in depth later on, also featured a number of testimonies from Epstein's victims who blamed Ghislaine Maxwell for being a key component in facilitating the abuse they endured. An emotional testimony from a girl named Carolyn was particularly crucial in illustrating Ghislaine's role, recalling that at 14, she was unable to even pronounce Ghislaine's first name, just calling her Maxwell for simplicity's sake. According to Carolyn, it was Maxwell who greeted her at Epstein's front door and scheduled appointments for the child to meet with the financier over 100 times throughout the next 4 years, once touching her breasts and telling her she had, quote, a great body for Mr. Epstein. Ghislaine was so committed to abetting Epstein's perversions that she even confiscated the passport of a 15-year-old girl who refused to have sex with the man on Little St. James Island, as court documents reveal that, quote, one witness was in tears as he recounted Maxwell bringing a 15-year-old girl into the employer's home, who, in the utmost distress, told him that Maxwell stole the young girl's passport and tried to make her have sex with Epstein and then threatened her. This witness was later revealed to be Epstein's former butler, Ronaldo Rizzo, who also recalled the young girl was, quote, distraught and shaking, literally quivering, as she described what she had experienced at the hands of Epstein, Ghislaine, and Sarah Kellen, another one of Epstein's recruiters. The Sun reported in early 2021 that these same court documents, stemming from Virginia's 2015 suit against Ghislaine, also include allegations that the British socialite
Jabri made this video way before the recent round of controversy surrounding Ghislaine Maxwell and potential pardon from the Trump administration.
A room full of underage girls to, quote, kiss, dance, and touch one another in a sexual way, which of course is all in addition to what the Farmer sisters' allegations were that we discussed in part 1. Annie going into more detail regarding her experience when she took the stand in 2021. See, Annie was just 16 years old in the spring of 1996 when she was ushered out to the trafficker's 8,000-acre Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, some 50 miles away from Jemez Springs, where the Catholic Church was known to send pedophile priests for rehabilitation, interestingly enough. Annie read from the personal diary she kept at the time of the abuse during her testimony in court, where she recalled Ghislaine asking if she had ever had a professional massage before, to which she replied no. Ghislaine then led the teenager into a room with a massage table, forced her to get undressed, and began abusing her while Epstein watched, remembering how she, quote, so badly wanted the massage to be over and to get off the table. As KOAT News recently reported, Ghislaine mentioned New Mexico a total of 64 times in subpoenaed emails. New Mexico is also where Virginia accused Governor Bill Richardson and Prince Andrew of abusing her, and it's also another place that Alan Dershowitz and Bill Clinton were reported to have
Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, frequented by all of these people.
Stayed numerous times, as Epstein told his scientist buddies on numerous occasions that this ranch would eventually be used as a...
Do you think anybody would still support Trump if he pardoned her? Yes, 100%. Yes, absolutely. It'll be a smaller percentage of the base of support than ever before, but if you think that the support will go away, you're out of your dang mind. It's a cult.
Base for women to be inseminated and give birth to his children. He expressed plans of having up to 20 women pregnant at a time, according to the New York Times. The ranch is said to have included a massive 8-person shower, as well as an underground strip club used to entertain guests, according to what an anonymous contractor who worked at the ranch until 2006 told the Daily Mail. The Mail also published a series of photos inside the sprawling residence that depict stacks of pillows lined up along a hallway, another shower overlooking a large indoor pool, and a massive depiction of Jesus crucified on a golden cross in one of the bedrooms. Which, I mean, can you imagine falling asleep with that thing staring at you? Like, what the fuck? Another architect who claimed to have worked for Epstein recalled a 6-foot-tall photo hanging above the stairs to the basement that depicted a naked Ghislaine Maxwell caressing a golden dagger. It's also been reported the ranch was fitted with tiny pinhole cameras that kept a watchful eye on all the guests, which made Ghislaine feel untouchable.
Bill Richardson was a major Hillary Clinton surrogate, one of her first in the 2016 campaign. He was also an Obama's candidate. If you want a reason why the Dems are silent on this case, yeah. I mean, it's definitely Clinton and Clinton associates who still have a lot of influence and a lot of power over even like Democrat boosters. For example, Huma Abedin is Hillary Clinton's like daughter that Chelsea Clinton never was. Now Huma Abedin went from being married to disgraced former politician who recent Adam Friedland show guest Carlos Danger, Anthony Weiner, to getting married to Alex Soros, who is, of course, going to be the recipient of George Soros's billions and sophisticated network of influence, NGOs. Huma Abedin is now married to Alex Soros. Huma Abedin is basically the daughter of Hillary Clinton, the daughter that she never had with Chelsea Clinton.
As the contractor stated. This is
no, it is exactly like noble inbreeding during the Middle Ages. Yes. The purpose of noble inbreeding in the Middle Ages was to create a tie between royal families. And that's exactly what Hillary Clinton did with the Soros tie there. It's not just wealth concentration, it's a consolidation of power.
Also something Maria Farmer has talked about as well, as she recalled to the Mail that all of Epstein's residences had these mechanical rooms and tunnel systems. I know this because Epstein told me. These rooms were enormous, bigger than houses. I have no...
Streets are saying Ghislaine is going to name Dems/Trump's enemies who were involved, clear Trump's name as having been with any kids and get her pardon. I mean, I said that is what's going to happen the moment that Trump floated the idea, the admin floated the idea of getting Ghislaine out of jail to speak to someone from the Attorney General's office, which happened to be the Deputy Attorney General, which happened to be Trump's former lawyer, like personal defense attorney, Todd Blanche. Yeah, I've been saying that. Just like I told you, there's going to be some sort of like leniency in sentencing in exchange for revealing information that, weirdly enough, absolves Trump and then will only name people who are in Trump's orbit as enemies.
Idea why anyone needs so many computers in one room. Frustratingly enough, the existence of these large mechanical rooms has still never been confirmed or denied. His Zorro Ranch was never officially raided by authorities somehow. All we can really do is listen to the victims. Victims like Sarah Ransom who say, quote, Ghislaine was like the mama bear, if you know what I mean. She called the shots. We had to listen to Ghislaine, and Ghislaine was Jeffrey's right-hand woman, so, you know, whatever Jeffrey wanted went through Ghislaine and then filtered through, according to court documents. Insisting Ghislaine's role went far beyond procurement. After all, she wasn't just bringing him young girls, she was also connecting Epstein to some of the world's most elite power brokers.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I wish her well.
During the late 80s, Ghislaine Maxwell started a business called Maxwell's Corporate Gifts, which involved her supplying long-term service awards for companies. I'm not even really sure what that means, but she was convinced her business could see quite a boost in capital if she reached out to US real estate mogul and Jew salesman Donald Trump through her father, who had been known to hang out with the future president from time to time and thought highly of him. I mean, Robert Maxwell was basically the Donald Trump of the UK, so of course they knew each other. Excited to tell her father about this cool new proposal, Robert effectively shot her idea out of the sky immediately, shouting, "Have you got your bum in your head? Why the f would Donald Trump want to waste his time seeing you with your crappy gifts when he has a multi-million-dollar business to run?" As reported by Nicholas Davies in the book Death of a Tycoon. Only I guess Robert underestimated Trump's affinity for stupid people and their stupid business ventures, because as Vanity Fair reported, Trump would go on to spend a lot of time with Ghislaine throughout much of the 90s. Like, a lot of time. It really, there's a ton of pictures of these two. According to Stephen Hoffenberg, a character
I wish her well. I wonder why he was wishing her well. Oh my. I wish her well. She's a beautiful lady, a beautiful woman. Her boyfriend was killed or maybe died. Very depressing set of circumstances.
Who will not stop popping up in this series, Ghislaine established a correspondence with Trump through his then wife, Ivana, who, according to what her assistant told the Washington Post, would meet Ghislaine at cocktail parties.
Trump's got more pictures of Epstein than I do with my grandparents. True. Well, He does, but he has even more photos with Ghislaine Maxwell. Trump with Ghislaine Maxwell is Hunter Biden with crack cocaine, okay? It's got to be on camera. I don't make the rules. Trump made the rules, okay? He's like, if I'm around Ghislaine, we need cameras. We need them snapping, okay? Straight up.
Gallery openings and shows, that kind of thing. And that's pretty much all we know about their connection. We can't really ask her anything else since she's now buried at Trump's golf course, but I think we get the overall picture. Trump initially became associated with Epstein through Ghislaine, as was the case with many other powerful people Epstein knew. One investment banker who knew the couple attributed Epstein's connections to Ghislaine's own personal appeal, calling her a charming, likable front person, and explaining to the New York Times that a big part of the reason people talked to him was because of Ghislaine. Ghislaine is also who introduced Epstein to Prince Andrew, a man she's known since her uni days at Oxford. Even though she says she didn't, Andrew himself says she absolutely did.
That's the other reason why Ghislaine is a unreliable orator in general, because she regularly lies, and not even about like things that maybe we are suspicious of or whatever. Like, she lies about things that we all know to be true. Like, she has perjured herself in the process of her own conviction. And they only dropped the perjury case because they were like, well, you already got convicted of being a pedophile sex trafficker, so who cares?
Given Robert's prestige, it's really no mystery that Maxwells have always had ties to the crown. In fact, some sources have even asserted the two dated at one time. As stated in a recent ITV documentary, Ghislaine, Prince Andrew, and the pedophile, where one former royal protection officer recounted how Buckingham Palace staff assumed Ghislaine and Andrew had an intimate relationship, considering the vast amount of trips she was taking to the palace.
Yeah, more like Fuckingham Palace when Ghislaine was there.
And the ease in which she was coming and going. Telling ITV she was in 4 times in one day from the morning till the evening. She kept coming in and out, in and out. Business Insiders put together a timeline of their correspondence from 1999 to 2001, with flight logs and photographs laying out all the various meetings and excursions they had, which include the time Andrew invited
Shipper. Pago, yeah, I'm a shipper. I'm shipping Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew, you know, which is like the most utilitarian solution there. That way, neither of these pedophiles predate on minors and instead just, you know, do it to one another.
Epstein and Ghislaine to his mom's Scottish residence. You know, his mom, the Queen. If Ghislaine ever did have a romantic thing with Andrew, it must have happened around the time she broke up with Epstein. What we know from that old biography provided by Epstein's lawyers is that he and Ghislaine ceased their relationship in 2000, but still remained close friends afterward, with Ghislaine relocating that year to her own Upper East Side townhome just 10 blocks away from Epstein's, according to the New York Times. Why they broke up, we don't know. They were still very much present in each other's lives for most of the 2000s, but after Epstein's guilty plea in 2008, the two were never photographed together again. That doesn't mean they stopped seeing each other, of course, as they were still exchanging emails as late as 2015, but it does indicate the two may have understood the scrutiny they were now under. Ghislaine, along with several other Epstein recruiters such as Sarah Kellen, was immunized in Palm Beach as a part of Dershowitz and Acosta's sickeningly generous plea agreement. But Epstein was now getting a lot of attention as a registered sex offender, which meant Ghislaine likely wanted nothing to do with him publicly.
Yeah, also very weird that all of the co-conspirators and all of the separate perpetrators, or they got immunity in this insane plea deal.
As to not bring any more unwanted attention to her own past, though she definitely wasn't about to disappear either. Though the law had officially caught up with Epstein, well, kind of. Ghislaine was permitted to live her life as if nothing happened. For a while, Ghislaine continued to do what she did best, schmoozing the elite class, sometimes even hosting events at her own house where she had stuff like this hanging on the wall. I mean, this is something that looks fake, right? This is what your QAnon uncle would post on Facebook or something, but no, it is real. It's a real Getty stock image taken at Ghislaine's house. You just can't make this stuff up. But regardless, this freedom to socialize as she pleased put her in the same vicinity as Naomi Campbell, Ariana Huffington, Tory Burch, Graydon Carter, Vicky Ward, Martha Stewart, Charlie Rose, Rupert Murdoch, Michael Caine, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Roger Waters, Michael Bloomberg, James Krakowski, Mick Jagger, and of course, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who apparently didn't know Epstein, but still took his family on board the Lolita Express twice twice and went fossil hunting with Ghislaine or some shit. What the fuck?
You weren't ever on Jeffrey Epstein's jet, were you?
I was on Jeffrey Epstein's jet 2 times. I was on it in 1993. My wife had some kind of relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. On another occasion, I flew again with my family, with I think 4 of my children, and Mary, my wife, to Rapid City, South Dakota, to go fossil hunting.
Yeah, that's probably the last combination of words I would want to see appear under my face if I were on the news. For a couple of years there, Ghislaine was like a specter haunting these snobby rich people gatherings, actively harming the reputation of anyone unlucky enough to wander into frame while she's taking a picture. Because truthfully, not all of these celebrities were aware of what she was doing with Epstein. I mean, of course, some of them had an idea. But you gotta keep in mind, Ghislaine was around a lot of people. Like, as much as I hate Elon Musk, I have no real reason to believe this photo is anything other than the innocuous photobomb he's claimed it to be. Except Epstein did actually send an email in 2012 bragging about a dinner he had with Musk, of which I
Jeffrey Epstein's connection to Elon Musk actually moves far beyond directly being involved with Elon Musk. His brother, Kimball Musk, is incredibly connected to Jeffrey Epstein. His brother Kimball Musk met his girlfriend at the time at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion, as a matter of fact, and he would stay there for extended periods of time.
Actually was not aware of until researching this video, so hey, not the best look in the world. Unless, of course, he was referring to Elon's brother Kimball Musk, who Epstein has allegedly set up with a girlfriend, according to Business Insider. So again, not the best look, and maybe I should have used somebody else to make this point, but the bottom line is that Ghislaine Maxwell had no trouble at all navigating some of the most prestigious social circles in the country. Even while involved in a number of civil suits filed by Epstein's accusers, Ghislaine seemed to have no problem visiting a private campfire retreat hosted by Jeff Bezos in 2018, just a couple months ahead of Julie K. Brown's bombshell series on Epstein. That's how slippery she was. Making TV appearances and giving actual TED Talks, Ghislaine was in full view of the public while knowing that at any time, the feds could very well come knocking. She was even—
Well, I guess when you're a federal agent yourself, you just kind of feel like there won't ever be any scrutiny from the public, from private institutions that kind of slip out of the control that other federal agencies might have, and then that yields a tremendous amount of resentment, and then it forces these institutions to at least take some kind of action. And in the process, they end up burning an asset. But obviously, the reason why she thought she could just like go to Chelsea Clinton's wedding, for example, is because, you know, she felt untouchable.
Involved in a few NGOs, including the time she founded Terramar, a weird delusional project to create a country out of the ocean, kinda? I still don't really understand what this thing was. And frankly, I don't think anybody does. Even in the interviews I saw, you can tell she's struggling to explain the purpose of Terramar to this CNN host, who clearly doesn't know or care what in the hell this woman is talking about. I mean, it's just embarrassing. By 2015, Virginia had filed a defamation.
One must also ask the question why these guys who were, you know, horrible monsters so easily got CNN spots every now and then for whatever kind of weird pet project that they had that was probably just a money laundering front. It's just odd. They were on CNN all the time. Alan Dershowitz still goes on every fucking mainstream news outlet all the time.
Suit against Ghislaine when the socialite called her a liar over claims that Epstein and Maxwell had abused her, according to Business Insider. This brought Ghislaine all the negative attention she had tried to run away from by distancing herself from Epstein years earlier, and thus she began to panic. In 2016, she abruptly sold her townhome for $15 million and basically went off the grid. Believed to have fled the country, Ghislaine wasn't photographed at any other event past the year 2016 and started dodging various court summons as they rolled in. In 2017, her lawyers told a judge they didn't know where she was, but they assumed her to be somewhere in London. For the next couple years, Ghislaine kept an extremely low profile, barely even going outside, according to one source close to her at the time, who told the Daily Mail that Ghislaine had, quote, become a real homebody, rarely ventured out. She's the antithesis of the woman who traveled extensively and partied constantly with Epstein. That is until August 2019, when Ghislaine was photographed here at a Los Angeles In-N-Out, days after her ex-lover turned up dead at the Metropolitan Correctional Facility in New York. Though shortly after this photo made the rounds, she vanished again, which was, of course, to be
That was weird too, because people were like, is this a fucking Like, is this like a photo op? Like, what?
Expected. She had to have known this was coming. One former...
You know what? Jaubrey does remarkable research, but I will say one thing that has missed his already pretty fucking comprehensive analysis video here is the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was most likely a Reddit moderator, which I think is probably the greatest evidence that she was intelligence. That's right. Ghislaine Maxwell was a top mod on r/World News, a prolific Reddit moderator. People say, you're faking, you're fake, that information is fake. I believe it. It is real in my heart. Okay? It is real in my fucking heart. I will not have it any other way. An account that posted literally nonstop. What was it called? I forget what the account's name is, but account that posted nonstop suspiciously stopped after she got arrested. Oh, Maxwell Hill. Yeah.
Assistant U.S. Attorney David Weinstein told Business Insider at the time that his death makes her the top of the food chain in terms of who you're going after. She now gets put in the kingpin position. Now, the hunt was on. The Daily Mail reported she was holed up in Massachusetts with her new husband, a millionaire tech CEO by the name of Scott Borgerson, I don't give a fuck, who she had discreetly married in 2016. Meanwhile, Sky News reported in October 2019 that she was hiding out with longtime Epstein associate Jean-Luc Brunel in Brazil. So there were a lot of conflicting reports, but it wasn't until the FBI used a Stingray device to pin down her exact movements by tracking her phone signals. As the Daily Beast described it, the portable equipment, which can fit inside a briefcase, simulates a cell tower and forces mobile phones in the immediate vicinity to connect to it instead of the actual tower. Once it connects, the Stingray captures the phone's exact location and the registered user's identity information. This brought federal agents to her New Hampshire home she had recently purchased under a fake name, where they discovered she hadn't exactly been living in squalor. The tucked away hideout, literally named it Tucked Away, was a 100.
Do you think Ghislaine Maxwell was Reddit mod? Is Ghislaine, just like me and my boy Chuck Schumer says is Ghislaine. Do you know Chuck Schumer said Ghislaine on like in the Senate? Really? Yeah. It's Ghislaine now. It's a matter of public record. I'm sorry. Independent of being a matter of public record. You're being anti-Semitic to the top Jewish politician in the country. No, Chuck Schumer.
No, I think that it's more.
Speaking to the mic.
Wait, hold on. What was the question again?
Do you think?
Do I think?
50-acre, multi-million-dollar cabin exhibiting the same hideous taste and decor we've come to know and love. I mean, come on, what are those chairs? She was formally charged in Manhattan federal court with enticing a minor to travel to engage in criminal sexual activity, transporting a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, conspiracy to commit both of those offenses, and perjury in connection with a sworn deposition. The indictment seemed to focus mostly on her crimes spanning from 1994 to 1997, and alleged she had exploited girls as young as 14, stating that, quote, Maxwell's presence during minor victims' interactions with Epstein, including interactions where the minor victim was undressed or that involved sex acts with Epstein, helped put the victims at ease because an adult woman was present. Because she posed an obvious flight risk, she was held without bail at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. After all these years of running and hiding from authorities, it was becoming more and more apparent to both Ghislaine and the victims she abused that maybe a semblance of justice might actually be on the horizon at long at last. Ghislaine's trial happened in late 2021, and honestly, it didn't take too long. In December, she was found guilty and convicted of conspiring with the late Jeffrey Epstein for at least a decade to recruit, groom, and abuse underage girls. During the course of her 1-month trial, the jury heard testimony from 4 accusers, only one of whom used their full name, who all detailed their horrific experiences of being served up to Epstein and his girlfriend, as written in the New York Times. Annie Farmer said in the statement after the verdict that, quote, I am so relieved and grateful that the jury recognized the pattern of predatory behavior that Maxwell engaged in for years and found her guilty of these crimes. She has caused hurt to many more women than the few of us who had the chance to testify in the a courtroom. Ghislaine's attempts to paint herself as a mere scapegoat for Epstein's crimes fell pretty flat. She wasn't really doing herself any favors when she started drawing the courtroom sketch artist right there in front of everyone, something that Charles Manson apparently did. It also didn't help that prosecutors revealed Epstein had apparently sent Ghislaine over $30 million to maintain her lavish life, and of course, these photos weren't a great look either, which I think I'll have to pixelate, but this one depicts Ghislaine pressing Epstein's foot into her breast on the Lolita Express, so that's wonderful. Defense attorney Paul Applebaum told Reuters that if he were in the jury, he'd think the two were Siamese twins. There was ultimately no way the defense could argue they weren't closely intertwined. An appeal from Ghislaine's defense was also recently denied, meaning Ghislaine will continue to carry out a 20-year prison sentence at FCL Tallahassee. Well, unless she gets Epsteined first.
Maxwell, for her part, stood to receive the sentence as is customary, but pretty much just looked forward and didn't seem to have any sort of overt emotion or reaction to today's proceedings. And I will note, during the course of the victim's testimony, she also did not appear to ever look at them, just kind of leaned forward and looked forward and took some notes as well.
Did they draw Brace? Did you see Brace in the crowd?
Day,
I didn't see Brace in there, but that would be
from the court drawings. He was there.
He was there.
Yeah.
Ghislaine insists she did nothing wrong. Even her siblings have tried to convince us all of her innocence. But anyone who actually knows anything about this case will tell you that Ghislaine Maxwell played one of the most critical roles in allowing Epstein's international trafficking ring to expand as far as it did. The biggest injustice of all, though, is that right now, she is his only accomplice to receive any kind of legal punishment at all. And she was originally immunized in 2008. If this story has shown me anything, it's that the rich and powerful will do whatever it takes to protect their own kind, which is of course something we all knew. But the way in which Jeffrey Epstein was consistently protected, combined with the lack of answers regarding things like where he got his money, who he may have been working for, and the extent to which he was operating, exemplifies more than anything else the most frustrating, corrupt, and ruthless elements of the various institutions we are supposed to trust. I think I can say that at this point I have truly lost my mind. I thought I knew the Epstein story a couple years ago, but lo and behold, there's still so much more we haven't even dug into. The full scope of Epstein's operation can never be adequately captured in 3 YouTube videos. Its depravity stretches beyond what our imaginations can comprehend, and I have a feeling that we may never know where the saga truly ends. The fact that this story—
Well, nothing to see here. Good thing that we know everyone was innocent, actually, as we'll find, except for Trump's enemies. That's what I think is going to happen. I've been saying this already.
Well, listen,
Ghislaine Maxwell comes out, defends Donald Trump, says Donald Trump is totally absolved, and then we'll say all of the people that we do know, plus here, make sure your phone.
Oh, yeah.
All the people that we do know, like all of the Democrats, all the prominent Democrats, and maybe even like some Republicans that Trump doesn't like, or Republican affiliates that Trump doesn't like, will all be suspiciously named as co-conspirators, and then Ghislaine Maxwell will be pardoned for her innocence.
Well, if there's anything I know, it's that to defend yourself against allegations of pedophilia, what you need is a pedophile.
Yeah. White hat pedophilia.
That is actually the funniest part of this story. I've always loved that theory that like the MAGA people have, that like, listen, Donald Trump, yes, he took a gazillion photos with this guy. Yes, they like gave each other gifts. Like, yes, like Donald Trump like ogled women and like allegedly harassed them behind the scenes at Miss Universe. Yes, we get all of it. But, and this is very important, he was doing it all as an undercover agent for decades, until the day far off when he would become president and then be able to exact justice on his enemies, which he didn't do in the first term, but is absolutely going to do now.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
Now that it is at the moment of maximum political inconvenience, he's going to do it.
And also the reason why he's just like kind of being noticeably weird about it is for, I don't know, for reasons. Alex Jones can't even spin that one. That one's so fucked.
I mean, they can't spin.
Even he was like, Mr. President, please just stop. Mr. President, you're making it real hard for us, please.
But they don't have like, I don't know. I've been thinking about it, and like, I really do believe that they're able to, like, a bunch of the MAGA diehard are obviously gonna, like, this is, if not like a breaking point itself, like this is going to, yeah, for a lot of people, this is going to be the beginning of a process by which, like, they begin to understand that, like, they've been, you know, like they're being actively misled, lied to about all these different things. Like, it seems like very clear that that's the trajectory that's been set up because the Republicans went so hard on these topics for the last couple of years. At the same time, though, there are going to be a lot of MAGA people who are going to, like, treat this as like the next stage of Q. That, like, actually Ghislaine Maxwell is also now like a white hat, and that she was mistreated by the evil like demo rat Justice Department.
I think the number of people that will do that is getting smaller by the day. That's what I think. I believe that this is like for the right wingers, like the conspiracy minded right wingers, like this is the purest expression of class. Like class politics is the closest they can get to class politics. They don't think about it from the point of view of like financial interests of the capital owning class versus like laborers, but they do actually think about it like the elites doing pedophilia and getting away with it. So I feel like there are a decent number of people in his base that will be like, this will be their break off point. Not like the final break off point, but this will be the starting
and
of the
to which
fissure.
I say, hey, listen, if you're one of the disaffected MAGA people who's been like screaming about pedophiles, who's like ruined many family gatherings in the last few years, who's like learned and even developed new racial slurs that we haven't heard of yet, I welcome you with open arms.
Yeah.
Welcome to socialism.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you know what pedophiles hate, the international elite pedophiles hate? When people advocate for socialized medicine. Think about
true.
that.
It is true. I do think
it's actually objectively anti-woke to want socialized healthcare.
I mean, there is like going to be a person who will be like, I have to believe that there are people out there who are going to be convinced that like actually like what this whole Epstein business is about is wokeness. That actually this was about like, this is about like wokeness and PC culture, and whatever, you know, whatever the outcome is, it's going to reflect the overreach of wokeness.
Yeah. You know what's anti-woke? Free anesthesia? Yeah. Free healthcare in general is so anti-woke. It
Actually,
is so gay and woke.
You know
what's
what's
so gay and woke is trans to want free to want healthcare to be paywalled.
I've always said that free insulin is quite libtarded.
Yeah. It's gay, woke, and trans to not let trans people get free healthcare, to not let people get HRT for free. Okay? That's right. What are you, gay and woke? That you're transphobic? What are you, stupid? That's like, I feel like I'm, what's his name? That fat Nazi, Matt Fournier or whatever.
Oh, Matt
Trying to be
Fournier,
like,
yeah.
It's brownoid coded to care about Palantir. That's how I feel when I say it's woke, gay, and trans to care about trans people like this.
If you give this much of a fuck about trans people, dog, you might be trans.
Yeah, well, and also there's nothing wrong with that. But also, if you think there's something wrong with that, then yeah, it's woke, gay, and trans.
Matt Fournier's trans.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's not use it as a pejorative that much.
Not a pejorative. Earnest theorizing.
They did get Republicans to say that they love Russia because it's anti-woke. That's what I'm saying. They will believe anything.
That's true. Although
if you slap something as woke or anti-woke, you can get Republicans to hate it. Like, say it's woke to be transphobic. Point to like fucking TERFs, okay, and just be like, point to TERFs and be like, look at how fucking insane they are. They all sound annoying. And they hate trans people. It's woke to hate trans people. I'm telling you. Oh my God. That's right. It's woke to hate trans people, and it's woke to want paid health care.
Still gets written off as just another QAnon conspiracy or something that isn't worth talking about infuriates me. There are real victims at the heart of this thing who deserve to see actual justice in their lifetime. And with the way things are going, we've only begun to scratch the surface. If you want to learn more, again, I highly recommend Julie K. Brown's series in the Miami Herald, Perversion of Justice, as well as her book by the same name, which I've referenced throughout all of these videos. Same with John Preston's book on the Maxwells, Fall. I think the Maxwell family has a particularly interesting history that shouldn't be discounted when talking about Epstein. Virginia Giuffre's memoir is also one of the absolute best sources you'll find when it comes to learning more about what these victims experienced at the hands of Ghislaine and Epstein. And of course, all of the recently unredacted court documents that came out earlier this year can be found down below as well. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. I think these videos truly did break my brain into pieces, but it's an important story, and
It was
I'm glad
really
you've
good. He
taken
did
an
3
interest in it. I'll stop yapping now. This is taking up my life for the past 2 months, I guess. For my own sanity,
Isn't this in London? I think I've been to this restaurant.
You've been to the Willy Wonka factory?
I think. I don't know. I've been to a restaurant in London that has like weird fucking weird seating arrangements like this. Maybe not this. Maybe this is not that.
To go find something else to make a video on. Unless
what I would give to not be in that room.
Oof. God damn. That was a 3-part series that we finally ended. And that 3-part series was